24 kilometres east of New Zealand, in the Hauraki Gulf, lies Little Barrier Island. The Maoris called it Hauturu, resting place of the wind. In 1897, the Crown bought the island from the Maoris and declared it a flora and fauna reserve. Today, it's administered by the Hauraki Gulf Maritime Park Board, with headquarters in Auckland. The island is a dissected andesite volcanic cone, which was probably formed some 200 to 400,000 years ago. Deep, precipitous ravines radiate from a central group of andesite peaks, the highest of which is Mount Hauturu, 722.4 metres high. The peaks are surmounted by knife-edge ridges rising through dense vegetation. At the summit grow dwarfed miro and kauri trees. And all the while, the mist and clouds swirl around the many peaks. This peak is called Herikohu, the thumb. Here in the misty areas near the summit, there are moss forests. In some places, the forest floor is over 1 metre thick in moss. Further down the mountain, the forest vegetation changes. Beech, rata and tawa trees are predominant. These are the berries of the supplejack. Between 70 and 500 metres, there are stands of kauri trees. Notice the markings on the bark, which are characteristic of the kauri. During the 19th century, kauri trees on the island were logged in great numbers, while the gum was eagerly sought by diggers. Two-thirds of the vegetation of this unique island is primeval forest, never having been burned or grazed by animals. Much of this forest is in the gorges and deep ravines where access is very difficult. These scenes have been taken along the lower reaches of the Awaroa Gorge, one of the few gorges that's reasonably accessible from the coast. This stream is a welcome sight, as many streams carry little or no water during the drier season, the water running below the stream bed or escaping through joints in the andesite. This rata tree would be at least 300 years old. Tree ferns are everywhere. Protected from grazing animals and man, the beauty of the forest unfolds. This is whau, New Zealand's lightest wood. It was used by the Maoris as fishing floats. A wide variety of fungi grow on the island. There are 4 known species of gecko living on Little Barrier. From high in a tree, 2 parakeets keep watch on their nest. Listen to the feeding call of the parent bird. Here is a tui, a bush robin, a bellbird. The many birds include several endangered species such as the kokako, the kakapo, and the rare stitchbird. The stitchbird is now steadily increasing in numbers. Each year, groups of 30 birds are being transferred to other islands. Some of the gorges open out before they reach the coast. Others, like the Orau, have walls which are over 70 meters high. Hingaya, on the northeast side of the island, has cliffs which rise 427 meters above sea level. During the last 2,000 years, there was an extensive rock fall at Hingaya of an estimated 23 million cubic meters. Wind erosion can be seen on the east cliffs where intricate patterns have been etched into the rock. The cliffs on the north side of the island rise 70 meters from sea level. Very few seabirds are seen around the coast during the day, although the island is one of the few places in the world where Cook's petrel has made its home. However, at several locations along the coast, there are colonies of pied shags. Little Barrier is surrounded by a boulder beach, making it very difficult to land. These boulders range in size from a few centimeters in diameter to several meters. Walking over them makes access along the coast very difficult. The coastal forest is predominantly Pohutakawa. However, in areas where the land was burnt and grazed by the Maoris, the forest is almost completely Kanuka. Here, regeneration is proceeding rapidly. The only flat land on the island is at Timarairoa, on the southwest side of the island. It's here at Timarairoa that the ranger and his family live. The present ranger is Alex Dobbins. Alex lives on the island with his wife and family. Unfortunately, at the time of filming, Mrs. Dobbins was away at the White Heron colony as a member of a scientific expedition. However, their son Mark is home from boarding school. As there must always be at least 2 people on the island at any given time, the school holidays afford an opportunity for either Alex or Mrs. Dobbins to leave Little Barrier for a short period. Mark is a great help to his father, for there's always a lot of work to be done. The Dobbins are able to use the flat land around the homestead to run a small farm. Their animals supply them with fresh meat. Because of the isolation of the island, the ranger and his wife have to be skilled in many areas. The generators which supply electricity for the living quarters have to be regularly checked and maintained. The boat and boat ramp have to be kept operational. All machinery has to be protected from salt spray corrosion. Meteorological readings are taken daily. Alex is also required to make regular checks on the many trails which traverse the island. Some of these tracks were formed by members of the Wildlife Department who were, until recently, busily engaged in a cat eradication program. It's believed that Hauturu is now free of feral cats, which were originally introduced to the island over 100 years ago. Until their eradication, the cats were largely responsible for the death of many birds, especially Cook's petrel, which nests on the ground. Every morning, either Alex or Mrs. Dobbins makes radio contact with the mainland.
Hello ZLD, hello ZLD, hello ZLD Auckland Radio. This is Little Barrier Parks Board Radio with the weather going 2195 2207.
Little Barrier, this is Auckland Radio. Good morning, Alex. 2196, go ahead.
Weather timed at 0845 075 41598 12005.
Unauthorised landings are not allowed on Little Barrier, and Alex has to keep a constant check on boats that often come close to the island for shelter. There's also the worry of unauthorised persons landing on the island and lighting a fire. The ranger must keep a watchful eye out for signs of trespassers.
The only landing places on Little Barrier Island are boulder beaches such as this here. Boulders that have been rolled around the island for thousands of years, and they've ended up in little stretches such as this. One such boulder that is well known to the Maoris is the one I'm sitting next to here. This large stone is called the Dog Stone. It is a Maori ceremonial stone. It has a tapu on it. It has quite an interesting little story about it. Apparently the great Polynesian explorer Toi wanted to land on Little Barrier, just this spot here. He decided to first send his dog ashore. The dog's name was Moi, by the way, and also to send his slave, Mokai, ashore. Well, the sea was a little rough, and the landing, of course, as you can understand, a lot rougher still. Now, Mokai wanted the dog to carry him to shore, but the dog didn't like this because of the rough landing, and this annoyed Mokai, so he hit the dog with his weapon and killed him. And as he did so, he cursed the dog, and it turned to stone. And even today, you can still see the sign on the dog rock where Mokai's Meri hit the dog and killed him.
Not far from the homestead, there's a grove of very old Pahutakawa trees. This area is believed to be a burial place associated with inter-tribal Maori wars during the 17th century. Sets of stone walls are also to be seen.
These mounds and hollows surrounding me here are definitely man-made, pre-European in origin, but the reason for them is unknown. There are several theories. One is that they were perhaps storage pits for food such as kuma and taro. Another one was that they were perhaps shelter areas. Dwellings were perhaps built in them. And yet another one is that it's a burial ground. But as yet, nothing has been proved, so this is one of the unsolved mysteries of Little Barrier's past.
Over the years, Maori artefacts have been found washed up on the beaches.
Yes, we'll start with the knives here, mainly obsidian, all of these. You notice they've been flaked off a major piece of obsidian, and then the other edge here chipped away to make a knife for cutting or for scraping. These are other materials used for adzes, knives, plus a few adzes and a polishing stone, all picked up on the eroding beach. And this is just a piece of sandstone that's been used for polishing and sharpening, or needles, fish hooks and that sort of thing. You can see the grooves in it.
Another of the regular duties includes feeding the birds. This is usually done by Mrs. Dobbins. At certain times of the year, regular food supplies, especially nectar, become scarce in the forest, and a supplementary diet needs to be provided for the inhabitants. Alex is always very popular with the birds when it comes to feeding time. The nectar drinkers are given a mixture of sugar and water.
Carcass, come on. Here. Now. That's enough. Stop your fighting. Come on. Come on in.
Charlie, the bellbird, is an individualist who prefers to drink his nectar from a cup in the kitchen rather than use the public trough. This nosy kaka is likely to report Charlie to the other birds. Taking photographs is another important part of the ranger's work. Little Barrier is always producing surprises like this Australian citrus spider, which recently made its appearance in the homestead garden. Near the west landing, on raised land overlooking the sea, there is a lonely grave.
Robert Hunter Blair, the second custodian for Little Barrier Island. This unfortunate gentleman was here about 5 months before he died. His wife had the nasty task of burying him, and being isolated, of course, she had to do it by herself. So she dragged him out into the garden and interned him there. He was there for a short period until the supply ship arrived and the crew could come ashore, and they brought him up to this rather beautiful little spot here and reinterred him, and this is where he stays now.
This plaque identifies the location of the dwellings of the gum diggers who lived and worked here at the turn of the century. Today, the site is completely bare. Nothing remains. The people have gone. Once a fortnight, the Stella visits the island bringing fresh supplies and mail from the mainland. Only visitors who have a permit are allowed to land. These are usually members of scientific expeditions. Like his predecessors and those who will follow him, Alex Dobbins is entrusted with the care and maintenance of this island, its flora and fauna, the preservation of its history. These are very responsible charges. It's also the responsibility of all New Zealanders, in the interest of world conservation, to help preserve and protect this unique island. Hauturu, resting place of the wind.